All right, so if you guys have watched the channel for a while, you know that I build my own natural wood floater frames. If you're an artist, you might want to consider building your own frames. Typically, galleries expect you to bring in framed work, so that means you're responsible for the cost of the frame. And if you're doing a big show, it can really add up. I've done videos like this before, but hopefully this one will be more in depth and answer some of the questions that I've gotten in the from the previous videos. So here is one of my natural wood floater frames. This is a 9x12, and so you can see that basically it is a natural wood floater frame, which means that the image floats inside of the frame. None of the panel or canvas is actually covered by the frame. In this case, it's a 9x12, so we have, I believe it's like a 3/16 inch reveal here. So this is what the frame looks like when it's finished and has no painting in it. This one is set up for a canvas. As you can see, it's kind of deep. All right, here's a brief synopsis of the building process. Step one, build what I call the base frame portion, which will look like this when it's finished. And then we put on the perimeter portion, which is the decorative part, okay? And then it gets 2 coats of polyurethane. That's a water-based satin finish. I use Minwax or Varathane, doesn't really matter, but water-based satin. 2 coats of that. Then the inside gets painted with black acrylic paint. I'm just using Utrecht student grade acrylic, but you can use any kind of black paint you want. And then the painting gets mounted in the frame. Typically I use 1x2 for my base frames, but I happen to find some 1x4 by 8 foot sections of Douglas fir that are really clean, really nice. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna cut these down in size, and I'm gonna use those. So I'm gonna get started on that. We want a base frame that is slightly larger than the panel or the canvas. We want it to be perfectly square, relatively clean of knots, and not warped or twisted. Say you want a 1/4 inch reveal, then the edge needs to be 1/2 inch larger than your painting. This side to be 9.5 inches, and this side to be 12.5 inches. And that'll give you a 1/4 inch reveal. There's a couple of ways to determine whether your base frame is square, and you're going to want to square it up while you're gluing it. So you can use a rusty old square like I've got right here, or you can measure corner to corner, and these measurements should be the same. If they are not, you have to adjust to make sure that they are. When those measurements are the same, then your frame will be square. Obviously this gets done during the gluing up process. How do we glue up the base frame? I use Titebond wood glue. I fasten all my joints using just regular masking tape. I don't use blue tape. I use this kind of cheap, whatever you call this color, I don't know. Use this kind of tape, the inexpensive masking tape, because it's actually stronger. It's got more adhesive on it. All right, so once we've got our base frame completed, it's time to put the perimeter wood on. You can often buy like lattice type strips of poplar, but what I found is that because I build in volume, it's hard for me to find enough clean poplar in the size that I use, so I like to mill mine out of larger pieces of wood. 1 3/4 inch by about 1/4 inch thick. The next step is to cut the poplar. This is the trickiest part of building the frame. Getting the perimeter piece to be a nice fit, especially with the miter joints in the corner. If one of the edge pieces is slightly too large, you're gonna get a gap in this space here. Building in bulk, I will use a stop, which is something that is mounted to the saw that allows me to cut multiple pieces that are exactly the same size. So what I do is I give 2 coats of the polyurethane. I sand lightly between the 2 coats. One thing that's really important when putting the polyurethane on is paint all the way around into the inside. And the reason is when you go to paint your black onto the frame, you want to make sure that the wood is sealed, because it will actually bleed into the wood. One time I did not paint the insides, and what I noticed was the black actually leached into the joints and made them look black. Also, sometimes I'd get some staining on the front of the wood here. It's very hard to get a clean edge with the black paint along here. So what I typically do is I will paint the black on, and then I'll take a rag and I'll wipe the edge clean. So that's how I get this really sharp paint line here. All right, and then the next step is I'll drill a hole in each side here so that I can put pan head screws into the stretcher bars of the canvas or the cradle if I'm using a panel in order to secure the painting inside of the frame. All right, so building your own frames is definitely kind of a complicated process, and it does take time to kind of figure out your method. I've been doing this now for 10 years, and I've kind of settled into a groove. I haven't really made that many refinements lately, probably in the last few years. So that's why I decided to make this video. It's kind of an update now that my methods have sort of settled into a groove and I'm not really modifying anymore. I'm kind of comfortable with the way things are. If you've got questions, put them down below and I will do my best to answer them. I will see you in the next video.